Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond the Saga, where we dive into all of those great Star Wars stories beyond the Skywalker films. I am David Cottingham with Hannah Burr. How are you, Hannah?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great. Excited to get back at talking Star Wars with you. I know you've been swamped the last few weeks. Plus, I don't know if we've talked since you've moved, right? Didn't you move too? Was that a long time ago?
Since I moved.
Oh, okay. Well, I get maybe you, because Cody actually just moved too. So,
wow.
Yeah, Cody just moved houses as well. So he actually moved right down the street from me.
That's awesome.
I don't know if you knew that. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah, so hopefully we can start doing some in-person sessions again like we used to back in the day before all this COVID stuff.
Love it.
But anyway, thanks everybody for joining us. We are diving back into the Star Wars comic series from Marvel. We are moving on to volume 4 of Star Wars called Last Flight of the Harbinger. So this is this book right here. Now this has issues 20 through 25, but issue 20 is one of the Obi-Wan Journals stories. So we're not going to be talking about that. That's going to be in a later episode where we talk about all of those stories. There's actually a separate trade that came out with all of the journal entries from Obi-Wan. So we'll do that at some point. But right now we're talking issues 21 through 25, of course, still written by Jason Aaron. And let's dive into this because, this is just showing you right off the bat how much the rebellion is really taking it to the Empire. Again, the timeline, we're between episodes 4 and 5. So we're covering that entire 3-year gap there. So let's get into it because we've got all of our main cast in this issue. Hannah, overall general review, what did you think about this volume?
So personally for me, I think the one thing there are two things I took away. One is how kind of ridiculous Han and Leia's relationship has become and how much she's willing to kind of put aside for him. It becomes very interesting. Second thing is, there are three things. Second thing is Luke. I think that Luke finally realizes that anybody can use a lightsaber.
Right.
What differentiates someone from being a Jedi versus a lightsaber user is the Force and their connection with it. And then the third thing is, wow, the rebels are willing to take such great risks because the Harbinger is a ship that's heading towards their outpost. And they said, no. We're not having that. Yeah. So they try to take over that ship, that Star Destroyer, to protect themselves and also to hopefully create some amount of damage to the Empire. How about you? What did you take away?
Yes, exactly. To turn that ship around to them. Yeah, I thought, yes, glad you reminded me of that because the Harbinger is not a rebellion ship. It is a Star Destroyer. So it's because it's a little deceiving when you see the cover. It says Last Flight of the Harbinger. Like, okay.
It's very deceiving.
Yeah, you think, okay, well, it's the final flight of a rebellion ship and they're, doing their best to save it or whatever. No, they're hijacking the Star Destroyer and turning it against the Empire themselves. So I thought the first thing that stood out for me, I think with this volume is I feel like there was just in each issue, there was just action after action after action. Not only do they take over the ship and all that happens, but, you have a stormtrooper force, a squad that's going after them. And later on, you've got Vader in his TIE Advance out there, flying against the Rogue Squadron. I mean, you've got just all kinds of action going on in these issues. So I thought that was, as I reread it, I thought that was the one thing that stood out to me. It was just page turner after page turner. So, so it was very good. I thought it was really good. I thought it was a step up from as we have done these volumes. I think this is getting better. And like you said, I think the dialogue, you're getting more dialogue into these relationships, and Sana is back in this issue as well. Sana Starros that we met in the previous volumes. So they're still hanging out with each other and whatnot. She's, I guess, I don't think she's not a rebel necessarily. She's almost like tagging along in a sense, right? So, so I liked it. I thought it was a good read, and I think it definitely moves the rebellion forward as we get towards episode 5.
Absolutely, totally agree.
Yeah. So I think my biggest point from this volume that I want to bring up is Sergeant Kreel. Who is basically an undercover stormtrooper in a sense. We've seen him before. He was in the previous volume, the showdown at Nar Shaddaa, because he was working for Gracchus, the Hutt in those issues. And in that issue, you saw that he was able to use a lightsaber. And now he's leading this SCAR Squad, is what this group is called. I think I got in my notes that they're actually called Task Force 99, which is interesting because it's very similar to Clone Force 99, right?
I could have sworn that is exactly what they were called. Yes,
Task Force 99. So very similar to Clone Force 99, but they call themselves SCAR Squad, elite group of troopers, and he wields a lightsaber. So it's pretty cool. You got Luke fighting a stormtrooper with a lightsaber. But this Kreel guy, I feel like, I don't remember. Because I haven't read actually all of these issues fully, all 75 issues. So I don't know fully what happens to him eventually, but I feel like they're building him up to be a very important character in the comic series.
Oh, there's no doubt. The fact that he's now appeared multiple times versus just that one. It'd be one thing if he was just with that Hutt sequence. But now you see him again, especially leading a force that, I'm sorry, you can't help but draw parallels between them and the Bad Batch. You just can't. I definitely agree with you. They're building him up because I haven't read all of them as well. I'm in the same place with you. They're definitely building him up for something. They have to be.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I think, Vader showing up in this issue also in his TIE Advanced, and you can tell he's still obviously he knows the name Skywalker now, and he's trying still to capture Luke or to get in front of him. And Kreel's mission here was to help capture Luke and whatnot. So. There's still that dynamic that's happening there. We don't know. I guess it's such a mystery because we don't know if episode 5 is the first time he comes face to face with Luke. I mean, well, we know he didn't. So we've seen him in previous issues that he's come face to face already with him, but at the time he didn't really know that it was his son. So it's interesting to see if that happens again. Like, does he ever cross paths with Luke coming up? Because he's obviously trying awfully hard to make that. I mean, we see it in episode 5, obviously, but there's still a few years until that happens.
Do you hope he comes? Do you hope he crosses paths with him before, or no? And why?
Oh man, that's a interesting question.
I mean, you brought up the topic, so.
Yeah. Well, I think I don't think it would hurt. I think I don't think there's anything in episode 5 that says this is the first time we've seen each other, right?
Right.
Which is brilliant on George's part back in years ago to not be boxed into any kind of dialogue that really hinders any kind of storytelling outside of the movies. So I am all for being surprised, right? So if there is an encounter that they come across, and obviously we know he's not going to get killed, but that fear, it's very similar to a conversation that Cody and I had on a previous episode of Inside the Force. Is that we talked about Leia and whether or not Leia has ever encountered Vader, even though Vader's not looking for her or anything like that. But do you remember in episode 4, the very first few scenes, when she comes in face to face with him, she's not terrified of him because I believe she's seen him before, right? She says, "Oh, Lord Vader, only you could be so bold." It's like she knows who he is. So I like that. I like that has probably set it up to where she's probably come across him before. So we're not at all hindered by any kind of dialogue in episode 5 that prevents them from having previous encounters. So I'd be all for it. You?
I don't know. Part of me thinks maybe if they do cross paths, it's either incredibly brief or it's Vader in an attempt to get what he wants in a manipulative way. Because ultimately his goal is, hey, me and my son, we can overthrow the Emperor, and then this will be ours. So,
well, there's got to be a test, right? Because because I think, it's interesting to think about that because we're kind of going on a Sith tangent here, because when a Sith like Vader, if Luke wasn't his son, let's just say Luke wasn't his son, strong with the Force, was getting trained to be a Jedi, Vader would test him and find out if he's strong enough to even be his apprentice, right? Because if he wasn't strong enough, then he'd just either dismiss him or kill him. And he would still stay, because that's the whole point of it, right? In order to keep the rule 2 going, he would test the apprentice, and if he's strong enough and gets him to turn, and then they'd kill the master, and then Vader's the new master and Luke is the new. And that's what I think happens in episode 5, right? He's not, when he's fighting Luke, he's not trying to kill him. He's just trying to see how strong he is. And I think he figures out that he is a really strong Force user, and he uses his emotion to try to get him to turn, and but he doesn't. So it'd be interesting to, like you said, see a quick confrontation so that Vader can actually say, you know what, actually, yeah, this kid has potential and I need to figure out how to turn him. And I think that's maybe what happens in episode 5. Maybe he gets enough information to figure out that these are the things I can do to get him to turn to the dark side so that we can overthrow the Emperor.
While that might be the case, I don't know. I feel like I feel like there's still part of Anakin and Vader. So I don't necessarily think, while I do believe that episode 5 does show the test that a Sith would do, I don't think he would put his son through the ringer because he just naturally loves him too much. In a way, he reminds him of Padme, whom he lost. I don't know. For me, I feel like it's out of character for Vader / Anakin to do the extreme harm to his son. Because he should have, based on what we see in episode 6, he should have killed his son a while ago.
Based on what we saw in episode 6?
Based on the fact that, Vader's like, oh, Palpatine wants to see you, blah, blah, blah. And then Palpatine's like, kill your father, da, 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 da. If Vader was a true And it could have been that Luke's words at that point really sunk into him. And he's like, you know what, if this is what lets my son survive, then so be it. I feel like if it was really the survivor mode that Siths tend to be in, he would have killed his son a while ago if he knew who he was. Or am I overthinking this? Because I could be.
Well, no, I don't think. I mean, obviously, he didn't know he had a son until after the Death Star was destroyed. So, I think it's. I think Anakin. I don't know, but my feeling is that I think Anakin has always been there, but Vader has always buried Anakin.
That's true.
And it wasn't until his son shows up that Anakin at all starts to resurface.
That's very true.
So, I think that. I think Vader's true intent was to turn his son to the dark side, and that they can rule together. That's been his goal ever since he found out that he had a son. So I agree with you. I don't think he at all wants to kill him. I think he's, it's a long process. Just like if you think about how long it took Palpatine to groom Anakin, right? We're talking 13 years.
Yeah. That's right. So maybe he does. Maybe he does plant a seed or something, or at least attempt to plant a seed.
Maybe. I don't know. That's very interesting to think about. So a little bit of a tangent, but very important, because I think this is where this series could be going, obviously, because we're heading towards episode 5, which is that fateful encounter between the first, as we know of, a fateful encounter between Luke and Anakin / Vader.
I think it's important to mention, though, like even though there's a completely separate section where we take a look at all of Obi-Wan's journals, I think it is very significant that this journal specifically is placed there. And I won't give too much away because I know we'll talk about it at a later date. But we see how much, A, Luke is like Anakin, and B, how naturally talented he is in the Force already.
Right.
So I think that just helps create not only a parallel, but also springboards the idea of how naturally gifted Luke is in the Force.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Even though he has a lot to learn regarding how to control it, it just kind of fuels that fire that we've recently been talking about Vader and his desire to have Luke join him.
Yeah. Very true. You're probably right about why that issue lands where it does, because it does give you a little insight of Luke's background before you get into these issues. So, very well put. I think all of his journal entries are very similar to that. He encounters his experiences with young Luke and protecting him and keeping that his name a secret and whatnot. So, very good issue. Very good point to make. Well, overall, I think I personally, I don't think there's too many big reveals in these issues. I think it was just really action-packed adventure type story. So I don't know overall any impacts to these characters or any impact in this story to the timeline that stands out to you at all? Or
all I've got to say is, Disney, if you're listening to this, you better take these comics, especially this one, and make it into an animated limited series. I mean, come on. As you mentioned, just jam-packed with action, and there's so much. Takeaways for me, I think we start to see Leia realize what's really important in life. Meaning, while yes, she is still a general, she's still a leader, she still wants to guide her people, we see her have this flirtatious race with Han Solo just to prove that she's better than him. But it's out of affection. It's not out of pride or anything well, it's probably out of pride as well. It's not out of obligation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we start to see her fun side, which is great because all this time we've just seen this, let's be honest, this teenager just obsessed with revenge and with protecting the galaxy. And now we get to see her fun side a little bit. Also, not gonna lie, I love how she and Sana are pretty much best friends right now.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, I absolutely love it.
I do too. That's pretty fun.
So that's one takeaway but we also then through that we see how clever she is, and we also there are a couple of very subtle hints that she is force sensitive in this issue. So that's also kind of a neat little Easter egg there.
Totally.
But then, as I mentioned in the beginning, the other takeaway is when Luke faces this lightsaber yielding stormtrooper, which is just kind of out of the norm.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of realizes, anybody can learn how to use this tool. It's how do you use this tool correctly, which is so instrumental in his training to become a Jedi.
Right.
So those were my main takeaways from it. What about you?
Yeah, great takeaways. I think top of the list, I think ultimately for me, it is Kreel. I think, I think when you have stories like these, it's easy to forget about new characters because you don't see them really anywhere else, right? And the person that doesn't read these never hears about him, right? Or never will know about him. I think, like you said, I think earlier is that it's now that he's shown up in a couple of different issues, hopefully he becomes an impactful character in the Star Wars timeline and in the galaxy, because I think someone, obviously someone like I think a little bit of Sana Starros is that kind of character also, right? And she's branched out already into other comics and whatnot, so people are starting to hear about her and understand and get to know her. And I think on the Empire side, right now it's really been the same kind of characters, Boba Fett and Vader and the Emperor and Tarkin and Tag and all these people. But now it's like, okay, we've got a new Imperial, got a new threat to the rebellion, and I like just impactful characters, and hopefully he becomes a pretty impactful character.
I'm sure he will, especially the way they're building him up. Also, the more we talk about it, the more I realize, and this is a slight tangent, but I think it's important to note that when it comes to troopers, at least in these comics, they have names. But then when we get to the First Order, there are no names.
Back to numbers. Yep. It's
back to numbers. Like it was technically with the clones when they first started.
Yes. I think stormtroopers, they do have a designation still, like they're TK, and they do have numbers, I think. But you're right. If they are humans that have become stormtroopers. They're regular people that enlist, as you would any army, and join up. So they do have names in the beginning, but that's a good contrast, like you're saying, because with clones, they're bred, they don't have names, and the First Order started breeding, even though they're humans, but they're taking them like the Jedi did. They're taking them when they're young, without names yet, and so there is that distinct difference with these stormtroopers still.
So,
and I think we're seeing that with the Bad Batch, right? We're seeing that evolution between getting rid of the clones and starting incorporating regular people.
Absolutely. But even then, the clones each had a personality, and they would give each other nicknames.
Yes.
So it's, I don't know, it's interesting to ponder if the reason why the First Order the reason why the First Order decided to have their clones have numbers is because by giving their clones an identity, meaning like a name, it gave them too much power, or it gave them an idea of I'm different versus I'm part of a team. I don't know. It just an interesting thought.
No, it totally is, and I think that's a big conversation, because I think stripping personality almost strips free will in a sense, and that's definitely what I think the First Order was trying to do, is trying to breed these feelings in these thoughts in these stormtroopers, so that they wouldn't have independent thoughts. So yeah, I think that's right. I think that not giving them names is not giving them a personality. So, but that's a big conversation.
That's a conversation for another day.
Yeah. Okay, so rate this thing. What's your rating out of 5 on this one?
I would say it's a 3.75 out of 5.
Oh, okay.
While it had a lot of action in it and a lot of character development, for me, I'm still kind of waiting for, like, this is going to sound so jaded, but I'm kind of waiting for the so what.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm probably, I was gonna give it a 4, but there wasn't anything too revealing or too jaw dropping, so I'll just give it 3.5. I think 3.5 is a good rating, a little bit better than average. So it's exciting, it's adventurous, it's fun to read. So
Agreed.
So yeah, all right. So go check out that one, Volume 4 of Star Wars: Last Flight of the Harbinger. It's definitely out there. These are not older, but these are 20. I think it came out in 2016, maybe. Gosh, man, is that 5 years ago? That's 5 years ago. But that's what we're doing on this. Yeah, that's what we're doing on this series, though. We're talking about the stories that we need you to, just in case you missed it, go back and read these things. These are great fill-ins, again, fill in that gap between episodes 4 and 5. A lot of people have responded and said thanks for doing these, because they're getting introduced to new stories that we're pushing out there. So it gives us a chance to go back and read this stuff and really, you have a new perspective of it because of all the additional content that's out there, right?
Oh, absolutely, no doubt.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we will be back shortly with Volume 5. Of course, other books that we're in the middle of reading and whatnot, and we've got our next episode has actually got an interesting topic that you'll have to just wait and see, or go look for it if it's out there right now. The next episode of Beyond the Saga. I'm not going to say. I'm just going to hint. That's all I'm doing.
Love it.
As always, Hannah, thanks you for joining me on Beyond the Saga.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Go check out InsideTheForce.com. Go on YouTube, subscribe there to get all of these, as well as our council sessions, our Masters of the Order, and our weekly show, Inside the Force. Take care, everybody. See you next time. May the Force be with you.